All right, just a little quick background about some forms we're going to talk about. You know, at this time, we'll hand out a copy of the new, and it's not really new, there's just some new additions and parts to the principal's concurrence form and then a brand new form that Tom alluded to. I wanted to take this time in this setting to kind of go through the changes. If you have some questions, our board has approved both of these documents already, so they will be part of the transfer eligibility forms that you're completing when you either receive the student or if you're sending school. You'll have a new portion, new things to look at. And so just some background about how this came about. During the 15-16 school year, we had an ad hoc committee that sat and talked about a number of these, I'll just say, compliance issues. And one of the things they talked about was for us to develop a parent-athlete form. And so that's really what's new about the principal's concurrence form. And we're going to break it up and talk about parts of it, but I wanted you to have it in your hand. That's yours to take home with you. The new link will be available probably mid-June. So as you're getting new students, you can start to fill out the new form as you prepare to transfer eligibility for next school year. But that committee thought that we needed to gather more information about how and why students are transferring to schools. So for that reason, you have this new concurrence form. Now the downside, I think, for you is the fact that it's expanded now beyond a single page. So if you're faxing it, I don't know if you still do that anymore, but if you fax, it's a little more cumbersome to include both parts, but obviously we believe, our board believes it's critical enough to gather this information. So here we go. I'm just going to go step by step kind of through the form. Again, you have it in front of you, but on my slides I've highlighted where you're going to see new information. So right at the very top, we've kind of made very specific language about markings of particular questions that now will require you to submit to our office for an eligibility ruling on those students. So there's a lot more questions, obviously, than we've ever had before. But if those specific questions that are noted there have been marked either yes for some, no for others, or with a reservation by either the sending school principal or official rep or the receiving school, it must come to us for a ruling. Could that have us see more eligibility rulings and happen? Yes, it's possible. We're open to that. But that's new. That's very specific. Notice to you as a receiving school, you might double check those particular questions because that's going to tell you for sure, and not that if those aren't marked no or with a reservation, that you might still send it to us for a ruling, because you always can. We never would limit you from the number of transfer eligibility ruling requests you give to us. We're always open to that. And in fact, I mentioned this in the earlier session, I'll point it out now. If you ever receive a student that you think is going to impact your team, that student's a pretty good athlete, I think you're in the best position to always send to our office for a ruling, even if you know and think that it's a slam dunk. Nothing ever hurts to get that letter from our office that says this student's eligible according to such and such file. So don't ever hesitate to send something, any question, complete the form, send it to our office. The question's going to come up, but still, I only need to have the principal's concurrence form in office to allow that student to participate. The answer is yes. However, the things we're going to talk about today are going to bring some caution, I think, to when you might pull out any of the rules. So, moving on. Section 1 is not much different from Section 1 in our old concurrence form. We simply added some language to allow you as the receiving school, as you talk to student, parent, legal guardian, that you have some reservations about how this student has come to be at your school. You get to mark that. If you mark that way, then once you get all the forms complete, you know that's coming to us for a ruling. But that's the new part to the receiving school principal. Everything else is the same. Stop me if I have a
Question number 9.
Yes.
Are you aware of that as a bylaw? Is that violation or any bylaw you think is broken? So it says if you mark yes on that, you gotta do all the bylaw.
Yeah, anything that you might know about the transfer that might warrant period of eligibility, whether that student's coming to you without their parents, without
That
their
question was asking, are we aware of any bylaws that may be broken by the student? Is that how?
No, I don't think it has to be broken. They just don't meet the bylaws to be eligible when they transfer. I guess, I don't know. You may consider that broken when they haven't satisfied the transfer eligibility requirements. To me, they haven't broken.
You know they moved with their parents, live in your attendance area, then you would mark no. Maybe they live with their uncle in your attendance area, yes, you have to come.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably going to be flushed out later too, but yeah, that's a good example. Yes.
So, number 10, I'm reading up here the highlight part.
Yes.
Said no, but we would get marked with reservation. So like number 10, I'm sorry, so the top part says the questions 9, 28, 29 marked yes, and questions 10, 30, or 31 marked no, or reservation, but the pin you mean the yes with reservations. In other words, if I mark no for 10, I don't.
No orders. You mark no orders reservation, then you guys do the eligibility requirements.
Right. You believe that's worded incorrectly?
It says, if I mark no, do you believe this student has to be transferred in a manner that is within the requirements of IHSA eligibility rules, following the Constitution and bylaws?
So if you mark it no, that you don't believe the student transferred in a manner that is within the requirements of the IHSA eligibility rules, that's going to come to us. Is that what it says at the top? That mark no?
Yeah.
Okay. Or if you believe that the student has satisfied the requirements, however, you have some reservations about it, then you mark it that way, and that's still going to come to us. Does that make sense?
Those two questions are basically asking the same thing in different ways, so.
Right.
Yeah. You could do away with it. I get it.
I get it, I just, if I, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Either one of those are going to come to us.
Yeah, what is the difference between 9 and 10?
I mean, to me, in my, maybe I'm overthinking, but 9 is confusing to me. Are you aware of any guys that, well, I know the bylaws. You're asking, what is basically asking, are you aware that any are being broken? Which is kind of what Ted is saying as well.
Right. Broken or not being met.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both
So
relate
they're
to
both on
the
the
Constitution. Yeah. I guess 10 is more about general eligibility, and 9 is more on the recruiting side, I guess. Yeah. If you're marking one, you're probably marking both that you have to consider.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, then this is new, section 2, and I could have highlighted the entire thing, but I didn't because I think that was a cumbersome to look at. But all of section 2 is brand new. And you may say, what does that have to do with the concurrence, principals concurrence? And in fact, you could argue it really doesn't. There's nothing about the two principals sharing information that may be necessary here. However, when we talk to the staff and with our board, we know that the concurrence form is going to be completed for every student. And we felt it was important for every student, if they're going to participate for your school, to have this information gathered. So in lieu of having an entirely new document that was a parent-athlete form, we inserted it into the principal's concurrence form to make sure that these questions are asked by somebody at your school of the student and his or her parent. So that's why it's here. You may not like it, but it's there. Our board, the ad hoc committee, our staff generally feels like this is good information to know. Simply because something is marked a certain way doesn't mean there's a violation and the student won't be eligible. I would say the answer is no. Because we know that there can be a connection between your coach and a student that transfers to your school. They coach that student at some point in their non-school participation. But if that coach didn't recruit them to come to your high school, there isn't a violation there. Will this allow us to kind of ask some questions about that? Yes. But just because, they have, we may list that they know a coach in your school, that they was their coach on some club team, it does not warrant an ineligible student. So please understand that. So you have here, and I'm going to not read through it entirely, you can do that. But what you have here in section 2 is a time of which an administrator at your school, maybe you, sits with that student and asks these questions. And I know we say to be completed by the transfer athlete and parent. If I were in your shoes, I would sit with them and I would do the marking and I would ask the questions of them, much like you probably did all of the transfer eligibility forms that you have. So I know that might be, and some may take that literally, but we're still okay with you being there. Now you'll see that we're going to have the parent and the student review it and sign off on it. But I think it's good for you to kind of, you're going to have to answer some questions about what's being asked here. So obviously you need to see what you want to know about, why are they coming to your school? Okay,
I'm sorry, Craig.
Yep.
Is this, when this form's online, is this going to be interactive where we can type actually on this? No. Or is it all have to be?
Not yet. This is, and Tina, my assistant, when I get conversed with Tina, it's her biggest headache is that we don't have this interactive. And in Scott's defense, because that would be a charge to Scott, the transfer eligibility, multiple transfer eligibility forms we have are difficult to complete without maybe adding some documentation. We just always get a lot of additional documentation. So it's usually, rulings in particular come with usually a designation of legal guardianship or a divorce decree for us to figure out who the custodial parent is or who's those kind of things. So today we have it. Now, I may have misunderstood your question. Simply to complete and then print, that might be an option we could do. Right now, it's not that way, I don't think, but I think we may be able to develop that.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay, not to be exchanged electronically, because that would be great. That you could complete it and ship it to us, much like you do a forward exchange to the eligibility, but we're not there yet. We'd love to be, and I don't know if Scott will get it done before he retires, I hope he does. But, yes, okay.
I'm sorry to have your meeting here, but so on this issue, kid moves in, he's moved in with aunt and uncle, folks are still in Wisconsin, dad says we're living here, we know he isn't. So he's going to finish the year there. It's a transfer problem. We're never going to get this filled out. It's never going to work out in you guys' office, right? Because parents didn't move, etc. So, but next year he's still going to be in our school, and he's still not, and the folks still aren't going to have moved. I'm not going to be filling out another form. Am I to now just assume he is a student of our school district and he's now eligible, or he continues under the same problem?
Well, my suggestion would be, even though you know he's ineligible, fill it out, send it to us. Because then we can give you the date of which he or she becomes eligible. So, and I know you get it, he or she doesn't satisfy, they're ineligible. But go ahead and send it to us and let us point out the date at which, and we'll give you a date when that student will become eligible. When they come, stay in their same living arrangement that they're in with their aunt and uncle, because they will have some eligibility once they've sat out a year. So I think it's valuable to you to have that from us, and then that way there's no question. You don't have to go back and fill the information out, but just get the ruling so that you know, and you can tell the student, hey, you're sitting out this long, because sometimes it's not a year. Sometimes if they transfer and didn't do anything in the spring, we'll give them some eligibility the following spring, not sit them out a whole year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good question.
By marking yes to any of those questions, does that, if a parent marks yes, we moved here because they got great facilities, that's not gonna.
That won't make them ineligible necessarily. No.
But it could?
It might cause us to ask some more questions. Who let you know about the facilities? How did you come to find out about the facilities? And not that we're going to necessarily go out. I mean, I think there's going to be more questions that we'll look at to see if, simply because they like the facilities you have, just if that's the only thing they came there for, you're right. That will It probably won't get to an investigation and it won't make the student eligible, but it would cause us to look at some more things to think about. Why is this student coming? Does that make sense? But you're right, just a simple yes on one of those may not, and likely would, one of them only, but a combination of those that we might see, you know, maybe they have a connection to a club coach, and maybe they like the facilities, and maybe in the next half, they mark that there is some undue influence involved in some way. That's the second portion that you have it all in one, obviously, but this is the second half right before the student and parent signature, where we tell them specifically what undue influence is, and then we ask these questions. You know, can they think about how they came to be at this particular school? Maybe it's your school, and then ask about the next. I think there's more discovery here about possible ineligibility than there is in the previous questions, but it's all kind of we're trying to collect some data and some information about kind of getting to your school. And I'll point out, and I think this is something you want to emphasize when you now you turn the paper back to the student and the parent and say, you know, here, there's an area for you to sign, is to point out this last line before they sign to say, if you withheld any information about you getting here that we find out later, at the point in time we discover it, you could face a period of ineligibility up to 365 days, and make sure they know that and see if they want to go back and answer some of those previous questions differently. I think that's, I mean, you need to let them know that's what they're signing off on when they sign the date there. Questions about that? Again, I know it's time with students, somebody, maybe not you, but again, I think it just helps in the big scheme of things of knowing the circumstance of which the student came to be at your school. All right, moving on then.
We're done.
Wow, that's quick. You did. Go ahead.
So this starts with transfers for next year, so kids coming in this summer
17, 18.
should be doing this.
Yes.
And then a incoming freshman who moved into community, you wouldn't need to do this.
Correct. New students to your school as a freshman, you know, they're open. They're not transfer students, so the concurrence form is not required. All you want to know about a freshman student is that they're residing in your district and they're residing with their legal guardian. That's important. And then if there's a little bit of question, they're only with a single parent, especially if they're a good athlete, you might also want to know if there's a custody agreement back. Yes.
How are the people that are not here today going to find out about this change and principals and ADs that have?
Yeah, good question. We're working on that. We're probably going to see something come out a little bit more public. That's why I recorded this today, and we're being recorded and shared, right, Robert?
Yes, that's true.
On the network. And so I'm hoping because there's some good questions that are going to come out of both ends of this, that we can share part of this today, this presentation, and then obviously do some stuff in the office to craft it and send it out as a webinar to a lot of, to the masses. Yeah, good question. All right, so new section 3 is old section 2 on the concurrence form. This is now for the sending school principal or official representative. So now figure out what section this is now. So as the sending school principal or AD, when you receive this document, you're getting section 1 and section 2 completed. So before you go to print this or review this, you're going to have and be able to look at the answers to these questions, and you'll be able to know that they had a connection with the coach at the school they're headed to, and they didn't list that coach there. Now's your chance to say here, you know that there's other things that they haven't shared. And so I think that's important that we go in order here. Section 1, receiving school principal. Section 2, parent and athlete. And now that sending school administrator gets to weigh in on all this information that you see prior to filling out your section 3. So the highlighted areas are new language within that section. Again, they're similar to the receiving school principal question. In 28, we had more than just, or less than evidence. If you have a suspicion, we want you to indicate that you're suspicious of possible recruiting or some influence on the transfer. And it's similar to the questions we talked about earlier. You know, we got those questions that do you think that they've satisfied the eligibility requirements? If no, or if you agree but you have a reservation, that's your time to let us know that, and that will tell us, well, get the ruling, eligibility ruling to us, and allow us to ask some more questions. Questions about, as the sending school, your role, Seth?
My question is, in section 2, the new part with the parent.
Yep.
Okay, let's say we have a transfer. We fill out the first part. Do we question the parent on the phone or in person, or do we give the form? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a big difference.
I'm glad you asked. My position would be, I preferably sit with, when they're ready, the day of registration, I don't know if that's possible in your school, but I would sit with the parent and the athlete if you can, and you ask the questions, fill out the form, then upon completion of their section, you turn the paper around and say, okay, quick review what we've talked about, read this line that it says if you provided any false information, that you could find yourself ineligible, signed and dated here, and then the form is complete for your part. Does that make sense?
Well,
Is that not possible, maybe?
yeah, it's probably not possible.
Okay.
Here's why.
All right.
I mean, we probably have 50 to 100 transfers a year. Now, how many of them are athletes? Are minimal, but are we gonna have? We're gonna still have to do it on every kid.
Right. To be safe.
I mean, there's no way time-wise that I can sit in with every parent and fill out that form out of my office. That's
Well, it doesn't have
not
to be you.
possible.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be you. You can give this to a counselor or somebody you designate within your school who is sitting with new students. This could be just an additional document that they complete. I think you want to get your hands on it at some point to review. And then if you have questions, you can make a call and follow up. Hey, I read this. Can you give me more information about your connection to that coach? But nothing says that it has to be you. But somebody at your school should, in my opinion, yes, take the time. Okay, questions about the concurrence form? Yes.
There's a section where it says with reservations, or there's another area that says suspicious.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that you have to write evidence to support that. So my question is, if you were to go back to that school and say, the sending school has some suspicion, would you use that language in saying, the school that filled this out has some suspicion, or would you just say you need more information? How would you go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's going to trigger us to look at it. And before I go to the receiving school, I'm probably going back to the sending school and say, I see that you marked it this way. Can you give me any information, reasoning for your marking, a reservation, a suspicion? What you have, to me, you have to have some kind of information, whatever it might be, to try to glean some of that. And ultimately, if we don't ever end up with any factual information, then the student's probably going to end up being eligible. But we want to give the chance so that there can be questions asked. And ultimately, I'm going initially back to the sending school, trying to get some feedback. Then I'm going to go to the receiving school and say, this is what we got. And whatever that sends us, we'll ask more questions of the parent or the student and see where we go. But yeah, like a lot of this stuff here, it's not, marked accordingly doesn't mean they're ineligible, but at least we can say we've done a follow-up. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, here and there. Yeah, go ahead.
Do we think that there's any, I didn't want to lose my best player, so I think there might be some suspicious activity going on. You guys will investigate that thoroughly so that it's not a win-win for that school. I don't have them, but now you don't have them either because I said he shouldn't have transferred or she shouldn't have transferred.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as a sending school, you can't make them ineligible. I can. And to me, I'm gonna have to have some facts to do that, because I could end up in court, like I do often, unfortunately. But I'm cautious of that, we have to have, if I'm gonna rule civil city health, I gotta have some documentation, some information. But at least we get to engage in the conversation to try to discover more. I don't accept any bad questions.
Why does this form get sent back to the receiving school and not to the IHSA? And my question is, several years ago, we had a transfer that we built this form out. We had reservations. We sent it back to the receiving school. And there was nothing, no follow-up, whatever. And a couple months later, I called the IHSA, and IHSA never got the form. Nothing was ever done. So I know this would be, you would be inundated with forms and stuff, but what is the follow-up through process that was, if you are the sending school, you have reservations, and that school receives the form and nothing ever gets done?
Well, a couple things related to that. That's not a bad question, that's a really good question. And that was asked earlier this morning. A couple things about that. To try to save us being 2 months removed from when you filled it out and now finding out our office never received it. Nothing would hurt for you to indicate in a quick email to me, I know it's extra work, or to Tina, and say, hey, this student has gone, I completed the form, I marked it with a little reservation, just want to make sure you get it. And that might be too complicated. If we get to that 2 month period, and the school has been, you find out that school's allowed that kid to be eligible, when you marked it, we highlighted the top, if it was answered this way, only it had to come to me to rule that student eligible. They went ahead, simply because they had the form, and let the kid play, that kid was ineligible. Now, it's difficult, but he or she was. And so now there's like forfeiture. If the receiving school doesn't do their part, where it says, you got to send this to the office, when you said, I have concerns, that student's not eligible until we say they're eligible. So, to help that student and that school out, you could give us a heads up. If you think you're concerned about that school and their follow-up with that part, so I don't know if that helps, but yeah, giving us a heads up would be good. Back here, and then I'll make my way around. Yeah.
Kramer, one question I had is, would I say look at putting some sort of time frame on the school, the other school, to give these back? I run into a lot where they don't want the kid to be at my school. We want them, and I send the form 9 times, and could there be some kind of like after 10 days or after the 3rd to 10th, they're automatically eligible for 30 days until it's resolved? Because tracking these down from some schools, they just don't send them back.
And I understand your difficulty, and we can set a time frame, but to those schools, I don't think it'd make any difference. So here's what I would say, and I'd say tell anybody this. If you've made 3 attempts over a 7 to 10 day period and you don't get a response, send what you got. Send a transfer eligibility form, send your portion of the principal's concurrence form without their part completed because they never got it back. Just tell us, I tried on these dates and I've yet to get it back. Our days are numbered of which the student should be eligible or has the opportunity to be, and we'll rule or we'll get with that school. So put the burden on us, not on you. Just send it to us, and we'll either follow up with that school, why or why not, and then we'll get a ruling back to you without it.
So you're saying after 3 attempts?
2 to 3 attempts.
Because you've done several of these for me. You're like, hey, just send it to me. They're good. But when they don't want them to play week 1 football or week 2, they just sit on it because you can't do anything.
Yeah, don't let them hold you out from getting a ruling. There's a reasonableness to time, and I think 7 to 10 days is reasonable. You reminding them a couple times after you send it once, you don't have to send the whole form back, just a couple quick emails. Tell me if you don't have it, but I'm telling you that I sent it, and then take it out of your hands, put it in our hands, and gather that information. We're happy to do it.
Is there a way to the school center to track those forms between the schools? Like I sent this form on Becky to, another school, and then there's some accountability for what John was asking about getting it to you guys, making sure that that's happening. I realize it's probably a bigger undertaking than what we're looking for, but that just allows for that to not go unnoticed.
Right. I'm sure there is, and Scott, I believe, knows there is, but we just
The
That would
process,
happen.
sure.
But that would be awesome, that we could have,
And then
particularly
there's an
schools
actual
identified
ruling
and
that that
shared.
school, because we'll never know as a receiving school, or the sending school, if that was ever sent to you and what the ruling ended up being, and then if that kid is playing, we don't know if they're eligible or not, if the process was followed.
Yeah, I get it. And I've had, and, for that sending school to know what our ruling was, I think would be helpful, because I've had some questions. Hey, we thought this,
Yeah.
can you tell us why? And I explained why, and then they're okay, but it's certainly unknown. Yeah.
But with what you guys are talking about, if you did mark no or yes with reservation, you would expect to get a phone call from them and say, asking follow-up questions regarding that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
If you haven't gotten that from us after weeks, and I know your plate is so full that, that probably is going to dawn on you for months maybe. But you're right. Yeah, if you haven't heard from us to try to gather some more information once we've got the documents, if something's not right. Yeah. Anything else, concurrence? Okay, so that takes us to the new form that we're calling the transfer component from receiving school coach. That's the second document in your handout. And this again came out of the same discussion, ad hoc committee, our board reviewed this. This is not a form that needs to be completed with every transfer student. In fact, as a receiving school, you're welcome to wait until our office reaches out to you and says, hey, we've received some documentation, information. It's going to be based on the concurrence form that you've looked at previously. But based upon some information we're receiving, we want this. We'll tell you the coach, we'll indicate the student, and then you'll go and sit with your coach, likely, head assistant coach, whoever it might be, and you'll complete this form. And as you read through it, it's simply trying, because of what was maybe put in this section of the concurrence form, the new parent, when they indicate that there's a coach that they're connected with, and maybe something else that has us a little bit suspicious about some connection and when those discussions occurred, then in this transfer component from the receiving school coach, we're able to get that coach's perspective of who communicated, when did they communicate with a student, did they coach, did they not coach, a number of, what things were guaranteed, did you guarantee anything about that student coming to your school, playing time, here's a financial scholarship, or whatever the case might be. But this is absolutely, wait on this until you hear from us, we need that, and that's the time in which you'll complete that form. I don't know how much we'll use this. I don't know that we'll use it very much. I just don't know. And we'll know after a year, after it's been out there, and we gather some information and try to get more information about the situation. Questions about that form? Again, I'm not going to read it to you. You can see what questions we're asking. But generally, we're just trying to see what kind of connection existed, what kind of communication occurred before that student got to your school.
And maybe we don't need it, but is there an opportunity to put a coach's signature on this as well? On this one from the coach, that one the coach is filling out, to say that they certify that it's not on here, that they certify that that information is true. I mean, I may be an option to put on there, just to give them a little bit more, like they feel like there's something behind that.
Yeah, good. Yeah. It's a good point. We listed that, but we could make a signature line very easily and include it. Sam, got that? Let's take that back. Okay, any questions about that form? Again, it's just information gathering. And so let me just kind of summarize what I think we can do with some of this new documentation. And these are just my thoughts as we kind of move into this next school year. Ultimately, our goal is simply to verify that students coming to your school are satisfying transfer eligibility rules. That's it. That's really what this is all about. Just to hold students accountable and their families, more particularly, accountable when they want to pick up their kid and move to or out, sometimes not move, but transfer schools. It'll allow us to gain some data about students transferring in their connection to a coach. 2 years ago, we had a bylaw amendment proposal that was going to mandate that there was a period of ineligibility when that connection occurred. Although that failed. But should that discussion come up again, if we're able to gain some information about transfers over a year or two, I think we can have some data about how often, how many times do we see this occurring, and some data related to sports specific, and just a collection of data about students and their connections to the coaches of when they're transferring to get to a new school. So I think that could be helpful to us. Obviously, it's the opportunity for sending schools, that's always been the case, but I think even more so now, the sending schools to see some information about the student and their transfer, and then obviously just to help with communication. So, and there might be others too, but those are just things that pop out if you're wondering, why are we going through all this mess? I think that's some basis for it. Dave?
Just to clarify really quick, we're only sending this form to the IHSA if 9, 28, 29, 10, 30, or 31 mark.
The concurrence form? There may be other reasons you might send it to us that don't get marked that way. Those very specifically require that you send it to us. So the concurrence form could come back clean to you, but I guess, that question is, do you know that a transfer or a bylaw that they're not following should still mark it accordingly? So I guess it depends on, but if you know of a situation with the transfer as a receiving school, but you have a question about their eligibility, or, as I mentioned earlier, if you have an elite athlete that you know is going to make a difference, and you want the documentation from our office that student's eligible, you can always send it. So we've designated some things that they're answered a certain way that you must send for a ruling, but if it comes back clean, it doesn't mean you can't send it to our office for a ruling. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I'm trying to get, because like Seth said, I do quite a few also.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, and a lot of international students, schools I can't get information back, so I'm just gonna send you the form after trying to send it to Dubai.
Yeah. I see them. I see them all.
I know. So, but a non-athlete, I'm not gonna send you because it's clean, they're not playing anything, but I probably should be sending all the athletes to the IHSA, right? Just to double check.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah. And not that I'm gonna, Tina may hate me for this, for, let this group know that, because that's a lot more work for her, especially, but for both of us. But we'd rather be safe than sorry, that you allow a kid to participate that, for whatever reason, you should have period in the Anything about transfer, concurrence?
No, I think that's part about getting the word out is a good one, but my guess is that by about, see, this is 10:20, by about 11 o'clock, everybody will know it.
I got a few more things that people are going to know about too, but I'm more cautious. So, yeah.
When will this be up? Because we've got kids coming, like transferring in, like when school's out, so they can participate in some programs and stuff.
I'm hopeful by the 1st of June, first week of June, we have this up and available. Is that soon enough, you think?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Tina and I will talk about that, but I think we'll be able to get it, because you're right, once end of school's happening over the next couple of weeks, you're going to get, because they want to participate in the contact days,
Right.
and you can start the process. Now, registration is all that's required for contact day participation. Don't feel like you got to have a ruling from us to participate in contact days. They just need to be registered at your school, and then they can participate in contact days. So if we don't get to you, registration is the only thing you have to have for a student to contact days. Okay, so